it's finally time to talk about this. This is Tobira Beginning Japanese 1. It's made by the makers of Tobira the Intermediate Japanese textbook, and I think it's time to talk about it. I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons with Genki 1 because it's clear with even just a cursory glance that Kuroshio, the company that makes Tobira, is trying to directly compete with it. If you're already studying Japanese with Genki, you may want to subscribe to this channel because I already make full-length lectures on all the grammar in Genki here on this YouTube channel. Actually, every single lesson in Genki is already covered. I'll put a link somewhere. Anyway, despite all that, I'm still willing to give Tobira Beginning Japanese a chance because it goes without saying that Genki has a lot of flaws. If you're concerned that because I make my living teaching Japanese using Genki at the moment that I won't be able to give a fair chance to this book, then you may want to just click off this video. I think I can do it, but if you're that type of person, this might not be for you. So let's jump into it. The first thing I noticed about Tobira is that the cover design is really attractive. It looks better than Genki to me, but I suppose that's a very personal preference. The price is 3,850 yen, which is slightly more than Genki's 3,600 yen. A nice hiragana and katakana chart in the front with conjugation charts in the back. That's cool. Okay, right away I see they've decided to go with an extremely small font, just like they did in the Intermediate Tobira textbook. I understand it allows them to add lots more information, but man, it is hard on the eyes. Frankly, I'm not into it, but the addition of color in this textbook is a huge plus. Check out all that color. That's actually pretty cool. I wish Genki and other textbooks did this. It might actually justify the extra 150 yen. Tobira appears to be divided into 3 units for a total of 10 lessons. Let's jump to lesson 4 to get an idea of what a typical lesson structure will be like. We'll discuss differences and similarities to Genki 1 as we go. The first page of the lesson has a list of what we should become able to do by the end of the lesson, and a list of what's covered in the lesson. There's 3 dialogues which are actually quite long for this early in a beginner textbook. Probably not a bad thing though. They seem to be on a similar level with Genki's dialogues, just a bit longer. Just at a glance, it looks like they might be a little more natural as well. Okay, this is pretty cool. There's a picture for every single vocabulary word introduced in the lesson. You could learn something from this, Genki, and other Japanese textbooks. Turning the page, though, this is all the same words. Like, they're all the same, just without the pictures. Except, this is actually great. Check this out. These all have pitch accent. It's very relevant based on the fact that many people want to study it nowadays, but why not just put it on the vocab page with the pictures? It would fit fine. I don't understand why they decided to have the same list twice. Waste of paper, moving on. All right, the next page is kanji. It's the same as Genki. Like, even the example words are frequently the same, it looks like, which, fair enough. There's only so many words to choose from at the M5 level for each kanji, so it is what it is. The only bonus here is that they're right in the chapter instead of in the back of the book like in Genki. In Genki, a lot of people don't even know that there are reading and kanji sections in the book because for some stupid reason they put it in the back of the book. And people just don't look back there. They just go on assuming that Genki has no reading material and teaches nothing about kanji. Now, neither book is revolutionary when it comes to kanji, but at least it's here. There's practice after the kanji, which is also similar to Genki, like very similar. But next we have some more information about kanji here, and they seem to go into more and more detail on the different radicals involved in kanji as we move through the book. That's actually really cool. Points for Tobira. Grammar explanations come next. They're organized in a similar way to Genki. Like, really similar. Really similar. That's a theme with this book. Some of them are better. The Mas form explanation, for example, it's way better than Genki's. I noticed some other sections had more information, and some sections had less information. Some had like the exact same information as in Genki. It was sort of hit or miss. So basically, some are better, some aren't. One thing that Tobira definitely does do right here, though, is that there always seems to be at least 3 example sentences in each grammar section. I think I might have noticed like 1 where there was only 2, but most seem to have at least 3. Genki sometimes limits it to 1 or 2, which is unfortunate. With that said, as with the other situations, sometimes Genki has more example sentences, so take it or leave it. Next come the practice exercises. These are the equivalent of the Genki exercises, the textbook practice exercises in the back of each lesson in Genki. I cover all of these in my textbook practice videos on tokinyandi.com. Like in Genki, most of these are aimed at pair work or group work, a classroom environment in other words. That's why I made the videos on the tokinyandi.com website because, you know, a lot of you are self-studying, and having a video to help you go through those exercises where we act as your partner, Yuki and I that is, I thought might be helpful, and a lot of people do find it helpful, so I'm glad that we made those. But anyway, can we talk about how Tobira has essentially copied and pasted all of their exercises like directly from Genki? Like, there's changing characters, new pictures, and sometimes verbs are rearranged and it's in color, but 13 pages of like the same thing. There's nothing unique here at all. And that's kind of disappointing because 13 pages, that's like the bulk of the book. 13 pages for each lesson, right? I mean, some are less, some are a little bit more, but that's probably half of the entire book. And it's just copied straight from Genki. Like, seriously, take a look at some of these. After these copied and pasted exercises, we have the reading section. The readings are definitely a little bit more complex in Tobira, which is probably a plus. The exercises after the reading are similar to what's in Genki. At the end of the reading section, there is a very small writing challenge with much looser instructions than what you find in Genki. Finally, we get the listening section. Genki doesn't have a listening section in the textbook. They put that in their workbook instead. It's nice that Tobira's included it directly in the textbook. With that said though, there is no workbook for Tobira at the moment, at least as far as I know, which means there's a lot less writing and, fill in the blank sort of, workbook exercises that are typical for Japanese textbooks. If you're into those, that's gonna be a bummer for you. If you hate them, probably not a big deal. Also saves you probably $10 to $15, even though Tobira is a little bit more expensive. Along with the color in the book, it also possibly justifies the price being a little bit higher in Tobira. The having the listening exercises in the book, not having the workbook part. Okay, so now let's talk about the Tobira website, which I guess is their answer to the Genki apps. First, we have the grammar section. It appears to be reworded explanations of the same information that's in the book. I didn't notice significant added information. The audio section is similar to Genki listening, except Genki has the app and this is on the website. The video section is the only interesting thing here in my opinion. I'm not gonna show any because I don't need a copyright strike on this channel, but basically they're very similar to my Genki lessons here on this channel, all by one Western guy. His pronunciation is quite a bit better than mine though, so that's something. One thing to mention though is that at the time of this recording, they only have up to lesson 7 finished on the website. Based on how long this book has been going, I'm not sure they're going to be finishing any more anytime soon. Keep that in mind. With that said, the ones that are completed are actually pretty good. I found my competition. All right. The pronunciation modules, I guess you're supposed to shadow or repeat these, may be helpful. So in the end though, there really isn't anything more than what Genki has. Noticing a common trend here? That is if you're including my YouTube videos as part of Genki, which officially they're not, unlike the Tobira videos. And then there's all the extra content on my website that pairs really well with Genki, but that's completely separate, I suppose, and I probably shouldn't be talking about it in this video, but One thing to mention is that Tobira 1 appears to cover about 10 less grammar points than Genki 1 does, but they also cover a few things that weren't mentioned until Genki 2. For example, te miru, ageru, kureru, and morao, stuff like that. Some of these are added into lessons within Tobira that are actually already really packed full of information. So I know that lesson 7 has like 9 pages of grammar notes, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite a bit for one lesson. I don't think I would have been able to cover a full lesson, like at least lesson 7. I probably couldn't have done that all in one live stream like I did with all the Genki lessons. It just would have been too long. I don't think that's really a big deal for people who are just studying it on their own. Like, people aren't just covering a full lesson in one day. At least they probably shouldn't be, but it is something to keep in mind. I do like some of the culture and grammar notes that they have. They have a whole section on wa versus ga, which is not terrible. And I also like the typing section. That's pretty cool. The breakdowns on different radicals in the kanji section was also really nice. But the kanji sections in general are nothing special. I'll still continue to recommend that you guys go learn kanji somewhere else with something like Wani Kani or Remembering the Kanji or Kodansha's kanji course or RRTK, something else. So it's not something I'm giving tons of points to Tobira for, that it's a little bit better than Genki, like slightly better. Oh wait, it's not slightly better. It's only in a better section than Genki's. I'm not giving points to either book. I'm sort of just ignoring that section because that's what I recommend everyone does anyway. Although the exercises might be good for some people. So my overall feeling, it's not a bad textbook. It might even be a pretty good textbook. Okay, here's the issue though. Over 2 million copies of Genki have been sold. That means that arguably over 1 million learners of Japanese own a copy of Genki. I mean, if we're thinking teachers and people who own both the books, stuff like that. Also, probably hundreds of thousands of people are using it right now to study Japanese. My Lesson 1 Genki video has over 100,000 views in the past year. Actually, I think it's like 10 months, which means that a lot of people, at least that many, are probably using the book right now, today. So for me to recommend that someone switch to this from Genki, it'd have to be significantly better than Genki, or it would have to bring something really new and innovative to the table. So does it meet either of those criteria? Some of the grammar points are better. Having pitch accent on all the vocabulary is better. Some of the readings are a bit more complex, which arguably is better. They explain a little bit more about kanji than Genki, which of course is better. There's a neat typing section. The listening is in the textbook instead of in a separate workbook. They've also moved the kanji and reading sections into the actual lesson, so it's easier to find. And there's color pages, color printing. That's great, but are they significant improvements? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys think. Are they innovative? I mean, maybe having the pitch accent could arguably be innovative, I guess. Nobody else is really doing it, but that is about it. And it's not that they explain pitch accent really well or anything, it's just they have it marked on the vocabulary, so innovative is maybe too big of a word, but what do you think? Do we need Tobira Beginning Japanese? Here's another good question. Does Tobira 1 and 2 Beginning Japanese, do they close the gap that exists between Genki 1 and 2 and Tobira Intermediate? That's sort of what was the assumed reason for making these textbooks in the first place. There's a bit of a gap between the content in Genki 1 and 2 and in Tobira Intermediate, for those of you who aren't aware. It can be a little bit jarring jumping from one to the next book. A lot of people don't know how to continue with Tobira, or it's just a little bit too hard and they have to study something in between. So I think what a lot of people thought was that Tobira was going to be releasing beginner books that took you right up to Tobira Intermediate Japanese. But the thing is if this book is any indication, it's basically just a copy of Genki with some small improvements. So is it actually going to close the gap? I mean, it's basically just Genki 2.0 or 1.5, I guess. I suppose we won't know for sure until Tobira Beginning Japanese 2 comes out, but it doesn't look like it's gonna be much different from Genki 2 at this rate. We'll see, I guess. So if you already own Genki, I have a hard time recommending this, but if you're having a difficult time choosing between Genki 1 and Tobira, and you don't own either one yet, Tobira might be the best option here, despite the fact that it's essentially just ripped off Genki, honestly. That is unless you want to use my grammar videos, which are all based on Genki. Now, with that said, Tobira covers all the exact same stuff, so you could use Tobira and my videos without really any issues. But I'll leave that up to you. See you next time. Hit the like button if this helped, and please subscribe and leave a banana in the chat or something. I love bananas. Who doesn't love bananas? Bananas in the chat, please. This isn't a live stream. There's no chat. In the comments. Okay. See ya. Bye. Thank you.